Hello, I'm Carrie Ann Hess, and this is my presentation for the local Maternal and Child Health Coalition in Yolo County. Just quick background for the listener, Yolo County is just northwest of Sacramento in Northern California. So adolescent suicide is a serious issue in the United States, and from 1999 to 2014, suicide rates have increased among adolescents. And in Yolo County, 16% of adolescents have seriously considered suicide. And this is based on the California Healthy Kids Survey. And we'll look at that data in just a second, some more. Hispanic youth are at higher risk for suicide. And in Yolo County, the Hispanic population is about 31%. So there is a possibility of increased suicide attempts because of our higher Hispanic population. So here's the data from the California Healthy Kids Survey. And as you can see, by looking at the results for the question that asked the students whether they felt chronic sad or hopeless feelings in the last 12 months, especially on 11th graders from the 2009-2011 survey and the 2014-2015 survey, you can see that the percentage increased from 27 to 32%. And then even more concerning is the question that asked whether they had seriously considered attempting suicide in the last 12 months. And 11th, we saw a small drop in 9th graders, but 11th graders, we saw a big increase from 11% on the 2009-2011 survey to 17% in the most recent survey. So this shows that this is a serious problem in Yolo County. So let's look at the socioecological model. Now this is the entire model, but I just want to point out a few things on each level. On the individual level, adolescents may not feel like they can talk to adults about depression or thoughts of suicide. And then related to the interpersonal level, family and family thoughts about suicide can deter teens from talking about suicide. And also the family dynamics can contribute to adolescent depression. And in Yolo County, we have a lot of blended families. A lot of young people are being raised by grandparents, or they're growing up in households where extended family members are living with them. And this can contribute to increased depression in adolescents. On the organizational level, we see that children who are in foster care are less likely to receive mental health services, and this puts them at risk. But lastly, I do want to point out a really positive policy option, which is something that Yolo County might want to look at in the future if funding allows. Some schools have developed a district policy which allows for a school-employed mental health professional or psychiatrist that can be on campus and see students and identify at-risk teens and help them get resources. So here are the proposed interventions to reduce adolescent suicide. So the proposed interventions are address kind of different scales of prevention. So the first two are more primary and secondary prevention, and the last one is leaning towards tertiary prevention. So the first proposed prevention is based on the Community Suicide Prevention Project, which you can find that information in the references if you want to read more about it. But what that program did is they developed a brochure to distribute to students with that listed resources for students who might be feeling depressed or might be having suicidal thoughts, so that they can try to get the help themselves. So what I would propose is a wallet resource guide, something a little smaller, something that the student can actually keep on their person. And then no resource guide is successful unless you have proper education to go along with it. And because the wallet resource guide would be small, simple information, I think that we could get peer leaders in the community to help distribute this card and conduct peer-to-peer education. So that might be more meaningful coming from a young person rather than coming from an adult. It might not feel so like an adult is telling a student what to do. Instead, it's coming student to student, which might be more impactful. The second proposed intervention addresses our high Hispanic population. So, like we mentioned, Yolo County has a higher Hispanic population, and Hispanics are more likely to attempt suicide than other ethnic groups. So this proposed intervention is based on the Latino-based community suicide prevention program. And here what I propose is using promotores in the community. So for those of you who don't know what a promotores is it is usually a woman who's trained in basic healthcare, and she is Hispanic, and she's well respected in the Hispanic community. So if we can train these people to on the risk factors and the suicide warning signs, then they can in turn train the rest of the Spanish-speaking community. So especially parents. So if promotores are working with parents, we would want them to mention these things to the parents that they see in the community or that they work with, to help the parents identify the warning signs of deep depression. So the last proposed intervention is a highly regarded program. It's called Signs of Suicide, or SOS. And so this is kind of a nationally recognized program which trains people to recognize a person in crisis. So like I said, this is more tertiary prevention because we're trying to stop a suicide from happening after a young person is already in crisis mode. So in order to implement this intervention, what we do is train the high school health teachers in SOS, so that they can in turn implement that training into their classrooms. So all the students who are taking health would receive this training on how to talk to somebody who might be in crisis and how to refer them to the proper resources and the hotlines and that kind of thing. No intervention is good without evaluation. So evaluation will tell us whether the intervention was successful or is working. On the first intervention, we would want to collect baseline data from students and assess what the students know about resources that are available to them. Are the students aware that there are hotlines or places or people that they can go to if they're feeling depressed? And so from there, after we implement the intervention, we would want to collect post surveys from students to evaluate their knowledge and see whether it has increased from the initial survey. And we would also want to know whether they kept their wallet resource card. Evaluating the intervention with the promotores is a little bit difficult because these are people who are in and around like all over the community. So I think we should target our evaluation more on the promotores understanding and whether they can relay that information to the Hispanic community. So we would conduct a pre and post test when we train the promotores on the risk factors and see whether compared to their pre-test before the training and then post-test after the training, whether they can identify the risk factors and whether they can relay that information to the Spanish-speaking community. And again, with the SOS training, we can conduct um, pre and post surveys. So to gather baseline data before the health classes implement this, we can ask the students what they know about uh, suicide resources. And then after the SOS is implemented in the classroom, we can survey the students to see whether they know how to talk to adolescents now, and whether they know where to get resources. And also just to see the overall effect in the county. The California Healthy Kids Survey will also give us data from the graphs you saw previously, whether those percentages go down, on whether we're seeing students with those feelings of sadness or hopelessness, and if the percentage drops on the students who are seriously considering suicide. Okay, so there are some challenges and barriers to implementing the proposed prevention and the evaluation. First of all, the California Healthy Kids Survey is not always completed by every school every year. So when looking at the reports, you will see that different schools will participate in different years, and this may account for some of the variations in the percentages that we see. And so it might not be representative of the whole county. Another challenge is that suicide attempts may go unreported. If a student attempts suicide and they're not seeking medical treatment for that, it may not ever show up in data, so that might not be accurate. The other challenge to implementing intervention is suicide is a taboo topic in most cultures, but especially in the Spanish-speaking culture. So because of this, we really need to be culturally sensitive in the way that we approach the topic for everybody, not just the Spanish-speaking community, but especially that community. And so we really need to be cognizant of how we're approaching this information and how we're delivering it. So here's a logic model that shows the first intervention is in purple, and then the second intervention with the promotoris is in blue, and then the SOS training is in green. So here you can see the different activities, creating the wallet card and educating the youth leaders, educating the promotoris, and training on SOS. And then we see the results of this, kind of the initial outputs, and then the overall outcomes, which is increasing utilization of resources by students, and then lowering suicide attempts, obviously, and reducing stigma in the community. So lastly, I have 2 pages of references. So this is the first one. So you can see more data on the California Healthy Kids Survey by going to the link provided, and then you would have to search for Yolo County to see the different years and the different data that's available. And then all the proposed preventions are also in here. And here is the second set of surveys. So to conclude, what I would be asking the Maternal and Child Health Coalition Yolo County is for your support on this project, and a letter of support to show policymakers and leaders in our community that this is something that Yolo County needs, and that suicide prevention is really serious and that it needs to be addressed. Thank you.